Moved by Bill, second by Alan. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 8E. Chief, this is in regards to the Twitter investigation. As you know, there's been all sorts of comments and suggestions in all the papers. Can you update us?
Yes, I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. This is a fairly unique set of circumstances for policing, particularly under the normal process of complaints and investigations under the Police Services Act. Back in early August, August 8th, as a matter of fact, we received, by way of a media release, the Ombudsman's concerned with regards to several tweets from a Twitter account that was allegedly belonging to a Durham Regional Police Service officer. Within an hour of that public disclosure by the Ombudsman, Deputy Chief Martin initiated an investigation through our Professional Standards Branch. Without the benefit of a full complaint from the Ombudsman or any other information, we immediately took that very seriously. The language within the tweets was offensive and discredit to our service, quite candidly. The disclosure of the officer's name certainly merited investigation right from the outset. The officer himself was on holidays and was quite surprised and shocked to even find out that an account had been set up in his name. He was very candid with us, came forward of his own free will to provide us a full statement that he had no knowledge or involvement in this. Our investigation continued through our standards branch and was resolved fairly quickly through various investigative techniques, to the point where we had identified the officer within about 10 days, who was in fact responsible. It was a Durham Regional Police officer who had set up an inappropriate account and attributed it to another officer. That officer is being dealt with by way of Part 5 discipline. The investigators looked at the entire scope of the investigation as police officers, looked at criminality, looked at the potential of involving the Crown Attorneys, had discussions with the Crown Attorneys with regards to any criminal offenses that may be germane to this investigation. There were none. Quite candidly, social media is evolving so quickly that the legislative processes by way of the criminal code are lacking, is the term that we could use. And if you're aware of some of the challenges that they're facing down east in Halifax with the cyberbullying, online cyberbullying, in which a young girl committed suicide, they're actually using child pornography offenses to try and hold those people accountable for that cyberbullying that went on. It's a whole new area for us in policing and a challenge for us, but we did look at the criminality. The Crown Attorney did not determine or did not feel that any criminal offenses had been committed. Notwithstanding that, we continued with our investigation. The officer is facing what I have deemed to be serious misconduct charges. As is typical with all Part 5 disciplinary processes, we do not release the officer's name until the actual date of the hearing, and there are several reasons for that. First and foremost is the concern that the officer may in fact resign, at which point we would lose jurisdiction, and there would be no grounds for releasing the officer's name. Secondly, his counsel, through the Statutory Powers and Procedures Act, Article 9, could ask for an in-camera hearing, at which point his name would not be released. Those are options available to the defense of him at the hearing itself. The third piece, and hopefully that's not the case in this instance, is that, as you know, oftentimes both criminal and other cases hinge on witnesses on the whole process. There is an option for an informal resolution. Oftentimes we have to accept an informal resolution because the case goes sideways at the last minute. We are not anticipating that in this instance, but we have to prepare for that. And if it is in fact an informal resolution, then there would be no authority for me to release that officer's name. So having all of those factors in consideration and in play at this point in time, it's our belief that the officer will be named at the actual hearing date I reached out immediately to Commissioner Lewis, and he has assigned a veteran OPP officer as a hearing officer for us. The hearing date will be released later today. It will be Tuesday, October 1st, 2013 at 10 a.m. at the Durham Reporting and Mediation Services, 12 Stanley Court, Unit Number 5 in Whitby, where we hold all of our hearings. The officer will be required to attend as per his notice of offense and notice of hearing, and will answer to the charge at that time. With his counsel present, and I'm sure his labor representation present as well, and we will deal with the matter hopefully in an expeditious fashion, and with all the gravity that it warrants.
Chief, first of all, to the deputy who started the investigation shortly after seeing the tweets, I congratulate you on the speed and the attention you gave this matter. I have a bit of a concern when the Ombudsman suggests that the chair of the board, maybe the board, paying more attention to the service when everyone around this table is very committed. I want to be clear with the members of the board, the Ombudsman never called my office. And it's not like I'm unknown. And if he knows anything, he knows or should know who I am. It's unfortunate that he's more versed in Twitter than he is in picking up the phone to deal with some of these issues. But around the comments on Twitter, Chief, are something that I know you and our deputies would never stand for. The board certainly doesn't stand for. And as is our part of our business plan, and as part of our service, the ethics and the behavior of our men and women is paramount. And it's unfortunate that issues like these sort of happen in bunches. And we've had our bunches lately. And I know the president and the vice president, is the vice president right? Yeah. The president of the association is here, and he is no different than we are when it comes to the men and women of the service. They expect the best, and they want them to represent us as we would like to be represented on a day-in, day-out basis. So if the Ombudsman wants to give me a call and we can have a chat, I'll be happy to do that. But Chief, this was not good for us as far as the public is concerned. But I think when they find out how swiftly you and your team acted on it, they'll understand it's not an acceptable situation under any circumstances. So we will wait to see. You'll be able to report back in October if anything changes, I'm sure. But we appreciate the update. Any questions to the chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know, 3 years that I've been here, I certainly have seen the command officers take an active role in discipline and ensuring that our members, you know, uphold what we expect of them. And I know in the past, the chief has taken proactive approaches to discipline before it's even come to the attention of this board and the media. And I'm sure in the future you will continue to ensure that all members hold up the high standards that we expect from them. So.
Anyone else? Motion to receive the report, moved by Alan, seconded by Randy. Questions on the report? All those in favor? Opposed?
Since we don't have a lot of time, you want to do it together?
That'd be just fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stand behind you.
Just because I'm TV, I'm going to ask you your questions first, if you don't mind. Okay. I just know there's only 5 minutes, so. All right, just say your name for a level check for me.
Mike Ewles, EWLES.
Okay, for those that don't know, just talk about the investigation when it comes to the Ombudsman and Durham Regional Police.
Yes, in early August, Ombudsman Marin put forward a public announcement, some concerns he had with regards to some offensive tweets over social media that he had received, and he attributed them to a Durham Regional Police officer. Disclosed that officer's name publicly. We didn't have any information in regards to that, but within an hour, Deputy Chief Martin initiated an investigation through our Professional Standards branch, assigned 2 investigators to that. We commenced our investigation, as I said, absent a full complaint, but we worked through that process. The officer who was actually named was totally innocent, was on holidays, had no idea the account had been set up, was very forthcoming with us and provided us information to initiate the investigation. Our investigators continued on within about 10 to 12 days, had solved the matter, had substantive charges on another member of the service who had set the account up. That member was a supervisor. That member has been transferred out of his unit, is now no longer supervising, faces disciplinary charges in early October in front of an OPP hearing officer, senior officer from the Ontario Provincial Police, to provide that level of independence and as a hearing officer to review that. I had to come forward with that announcement simply because the original officer who was returning from holidays, the innocent officer, was returning to a workplace and quite candidly was facing rumor, innuendo, speculation, and was totally innocent. So I came out and absolved him of any responsibility for that, as I felt committed to him, and it was only the right thing to do, and we do the right things around here.
I read that the police service was looking for some sort of apology. Has anything been said with this certain officer and the Ombudsman?
It's my understanding that the innocent officer and the Ombudsman have had a conversation and had a very candid conversation. The Ombudsman was very gracious in apologizing to the member for inappropriately disclosing his name. And I know Ombudsman Marin, as late as last Thursday, I believe, had an interview with our investigators, and they're wrapping up that portion of the investigation.
And the officer that actually did send out the tweets, tell me why the name can't be released.
The name can't be released primarily for 3 reasons. First and foremost is the officer may very well resign and we lose jurisdiction. That's always been a process in the Police Service Act. Secondly, there is always the chance of an informal resolution. Informal resolution means not deemed serious. In this instance, I do deem the offense as serious. We are taking this very seriously, but as you know, often with criminal cases, things go off the rails at the last minute. Deals are made, negotiations are made outside of my jurisdiction, so that we would eventually, and if that's the case and it is resolved informally, then there is no grounds to release the name. And thirdly, there's a provision under the Statutory Powers and Procedures Act whereby the defense could make an application to hold the entire hearing in camera. The success of that I'm not aware of, but it is an option for the defense to consider, and therefore I have to respect that prior to the hearing date. So the officer will go, as is our custom, on the date in front of a hearing officer. Once the formal charges are read, the name will be disclosed.
And when and where, sorry, when and where is the hearing?
It's early October at Durham Reporting. I've got the details. I think I announced them earlier on. So we're putting out a media release to that effect. Date, time, location.
Can you reveal for us what charges are going to be the subject?
The substantive charge will be a discreditable conduct charge under the Police Service Act Part 5 discipline. Our investigators are still finishing off some other components of the investigation. As I said, we just had our interview with Mr. Marin last Thursday, and so if there are any further leads on that or any other investigative avenues to follow up, the investigators will continue with that.
So the charge has been laid?
The notice of hearing has been served on him. It can be amended right up into and including that date.
Now, am I correct in my inference, if this person is a supervisor, that we're dealing with a veteran officer?
Supervisors generally, well, they've been promoted at least to the rank of sergeant or detective. So I got promoted at 10 years, whether that was a veteran. I got promoted to sergeant at 10, whether I considered myself a veteran at that point in time.
Does that make this a little more troubling in your mind?
Very much so. Our supervisors, we definitely hold to a higher standard. It is quite a surprise and a concern to us, and that's why we initiated the investigation so quickly. And when it was determined that it was a supervisor, they were immediately removed from their assignment. They have no supervisory duties right now, and we'll deal with that accordingly. That may be an aggravating factor at trial if it's brought forward by the prosecutor. So,
Any notion as to why Dennis in particular was targeted and framed up?
I have no idea, and that may come out as part of the hearing.
But the supervisor supervised Dennis, correct?
The supervisor was a supervisor within the service.
Interesting.
But
Everyone's a supervisor. Every sergeant is a supervisor.
Okay, did they have
Every
a
detective is a
did they
supervisor.
have a direct working relationship?
I can't comment. I
That's right.
tend to disclose who the officer is.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there any sense of whether it was done sort of deliberate malice or whether it was a joke?
I have no information on that. The investigators are working on that component of it. I'm as anxious to find out as anyone else, to be quite honest.
Will this be resolved on October 1st?
I
Hearing?
have no idea. That's just a first appearance date.
Okay.
Whether the officer wants to have whether he's entitled to full defense, or whether he wants to plead guilty at first opportunity, or have some negotiations with the prosecutor. We have an independent prosecutor, we have an independent hearing officer, so that's all part of that process, so.
It's not typically the case that this is a one-day.
Not typically. A lot of times our officers who are quite candidly in the informal process feel remorse, want to get out there ahead of it, move on with their career. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, and it's accepting that accountability and responsibility for it and moving forward.
What's the potential jeopardy career-wise? Or
Discreditable conduct, depending on the seriousness of the offense, can include up to and including dismissal. That would be up to the hearing officer to take a look at both the aggravating factors and the mitigating factors. Is this a first offense, a second offense? Is there a pattern of behavior? All of those things would be factored in through their counsel, through their submissions.
it depends on the finding of guilt too.
Absolutely depends on a finding of guilt or a plea of guilt.
Now, when you put out your statement today, will you name the hearing officer?
I'm not sure if the hearing officer is named.
But it's an OPP.
It's an OPP senior officer who has experience.
Serving
as a
or
hearing-
retired?
Serving.
Thank you very much. Before you leave, I'll steal that back from you.
Better take that back or you're going to listen to the whole in-camera session.
Drinking.
And that would be...